So the story of Steve Bacon, to really understand who I am as a coach, it's really important to understand how I got here. So if you'll indulge me for a second, I'd love to share with you the origin story. I was born in '84, right at the start of the crack epidemic. And 6 months after I was born, my mom got addicted to crack. And as a result, I went to 14 different schools growing up, just bouncing around from family member to family member, from school to school. And unfortunately, during that time period, I was molested as a kid. I was held as ransom for a drug dealer, apparently, that a story my family tells, that my mom owed money to. And that created a whole lot of trauma that unfortunately I had to experience. I was seeing people get shot. I've seen people overdose in my face. I've seen people smoke crack in my face. I mean, I always make the joke that my mom created the first crack in a box, where people were literally driving up to the window and she was dealing crack out of the window. So a lot of times I like to, God rest her soul, I love her so much, but I like to compare my mom to Medea, right? A weed token, Bibles quoting, right? So steal from you, stab you, pray for you, and feed you all in the same breath. But unfortunately, that led to a lot of neglect on her part. And so when I was 8 years old, she dropped me off at my grandmother's house. And it was just like any other time she would drop me off. But the next day, some Chico DeBarge looking dude showed up, and I had no idea who he was. And he comes to me and he says, "I'm your dad and you're coming to live with me." Now, as an 8-year-old, I'm sitting here looking at him like, where is my mama? And I'm looking at my grandmother like, are you really about to let me walk out the house with this dude? And so she doesn't do anything, and he takes me to live with him. Now, as an 8-year-old, I know this in retrospect, that I took that as the women who love me will leave me, unfortunately, because whenever we experience a level of trauma, our mind takes a snapshot of what caused that trauma and then creates a strategy to never experience that again. And so went to live with my dad, and we had a very contentious, abusive relationship, which led to even more anger that I was holding on to. And then at 17, went to the military, married the first girl who said she loved me, and then unfortunately physically, mentally, and emotionally abused her until she got the courage to leave. And when she did, and rightfully so, I played victim and took a loaded gun, put it in my mouth, and pulled the trigger. And the only thing that saved me was God. It was in that moment that I realized I didn't want to die. I just didn't know how to live. But I still didn't know what to do with all of that trauma that I had experienced. So I did what any sane, rational human being would do. I started drinking. I started drinking to get drunk. And unfortunately found myself on the wrong end of the law, and a convicted felon at 19, a ruined military career, to only do what any sane, rational human being would do at that point. I married the second girl who said she loved me at 20 years old and repeated the process. But then I met a guy named Hank who introduced me to personal development. And now, almost 20 years later, I've created a $500,000 a year business, a 2-time author, married to my best friend who I've never laid a hand on, besides the bedroom, if you know what I mean. I travel around the world, and I get a chance now to take everything that I've learned and help champions become legends.